Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
And this is your top podcast for the third place Baltimore Orioles. That feels good to say. And it might not even be true by the time the podcast comes out. We're recording this a little bit ahead of time.
Could be in first place.
Nope, not that could not happen.
Statistically not possible.
Could
Probably
be in the
not,
first.
Unless
yeah.
we're still like 10 games back. So I guess Tyler could hold on it, make this
Yeah.
all wrong for us. But
Yeah,
the
the
Yankees
podcast
could lose every game.
I mean, they've been pretty bad. The
yeah, they're
Yankees
like 2-8 in the last 10.
Yeah, and I think like it's over like a long span. They've been like a 500 team. I don't know how many games it is, but essentially you take away their really hot start, and the Yankees are kind of just average, which is awesome. But I mean, theoretically, the team we could get to second place in the AL East by the time this comes out. We're recording this on the 13th, Saturday the 13th, DL Hall Day. And yeah, I mean, it feels pretty good. We've recorded one podcast already today, so the energy may be a little low coming into this episode, but it's an exciting time. I made the argument on Camden Chat today. I wrote the bird droppings that today is, of this season so far, the most exciting day to be an Orioles fan to this point. And that could be upended still. But I think the combination of the Orioles taking over a playoff spot last night, moving up to third, and DL Hall being promoted, this is the most excited I've been all season. How do you guys
Is
feel
that
about it?
more exciting than Adley?
Well, because it's the combination.
No, I get it. No,
So then
I
the answer
got
would be
that it's a
yes.
multifaceted. There are two dimensions to this. Yeah, no, I
Well, because
understand.
when Adley
that.
came up, I was like, cool, Adley's up, but we suck.
we're bad. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I
Adley's
get
up.
that.
So yeah.
I will say though that I think Jesse has a valid point. The Adley promotion was just, it was the end of. It was just so symbolic. It was like, okay, now this is the start of everything that we've been waiting for and hoping for and working for the last 5 years. So I definitely see what Jesse's saying. That said, that day and this day have both given me enough energy to carry me through to the next off season. So
There you go. Yeah, I think, and if I isolate Hall or Rutschman, clearly Rutschman.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But-
No. I mean,
But now, to Eli's point, though, yes, I felt the sense of relief that was all coming to the end. And now we're at this point where I'm like, it's well in the rear view at this point, and we're going to make the playoffs.
right.
we have turned that corner now, and now it's time to start looking at the next step.
Absolutely.
I get that.
Absolutely. But yeah, so as we record right now, the Orioles are in possession of a playoff spot. They're a half game up on the Rays for that third and final wildcard spot in the AL. Fangraphs this morning gives the Orioles an almost 8% chance of making the playoffs, which is the most pessimistic of the big projections out there. Baseball Reference has us up to 55.6% chance to make the playoffs. We were talking about this before we recorded. And the Baseball Reference one does use the last 100 games as a sample size. And to your point, Jesse, about Rutschman coming up, and that was kind of the turning point to the season. Basically, the last 100 games have had Adley on the team for the most part. I think the very beginning didn't. But the Orioles are a totally different team post-Adley than they were pre-Adley. So, yeah, I mean, I'm starting to believe that these guys are for real. Are you guys kind of in the same headspace there? A nod from Eli, yes.
Yeah, I believe. I was trying to give Jesse the space to go first, but he didn't pick it up. Yeah, no, I definitely believe. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't believe that I believe. I don't 100% think that, we will have that wild card spot. I don't 100, I'm not green lights, no doubt about it in my mind. I'm not at that point, but
Right.
The chance is real, and I think we will be competing for it the rest of the year. We've only got 3 games left against the Yankees. As we said, they have been struggling a bit, but they're clearly the best team. I think everyone else in the division we can play with on a day in, day out basis. And I think our prospects are good.
Jesse, do you want to jump in now? You were hesitant to do it.
I do.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I do think we definitely have a shot at this thing. I definitely think that's true. I guess I want to see the Orioles go through a slump a little bit and then see how the Orioles recover from that. Because things are. I mean, we're just kind of playing out of,
It's unsustainable. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I mean, we have a third of the season left. There have been teams that have had fluke years, right? So, I think it's possible the Orioles can continue somewhat resembling what they're playing at right now for the rest of the year. But I want to see us. I don't know. Not that I want to see how we would respond to like getting swept in a 4-game series by somebody, right? And I would want to see like what would happen after that, and I think the team is riding a lot of confidence right now, and we are, and our mental state, us thinking about this, we're all really, really excited. The Orioles are playing really well. It was very unfortunate we dropped the game to Boston, but overall the Orioles are playing really well right now. We just thrashed the Rays last night. So I guess we're at a high right now, right? And I guess I want to kind of evaluate it when things are not as sky high, right, for the Orioles. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, people have started to talk about the strength of schedule a lot the last few days, and I think that's a sign that things are for real. Like we're getting down to the stretch run here, and that does start to matter. The Orioles, some of their hardest opponents left. They've got 7 against the Astros. That's the big kind of chunk there, and then behind that is 13 against the Blue Jays, which is huge as well. Although they just took 2 in a row from the Blue Jays. They do have just the 3 against the Yankees. These 2 against the Rays, which, this episode will come out after they've played these 2 games, but those are huge because if the Orioles win just one of those, then they have any sort of tiebreaker over the Rays if it comes down to the nitty-gritty, because the Orioles right now, I guess they're 1 game above 500 against the Rays. They need 1 more win to clinch a winning record against them this year, which is like such a shocking turnaround compared to last year when the Orioles won a game. They won 1 game against the Rays last year. They went 1-18. So yeah, I think that does matter. But looking at this, the Rays probably have a harder schedule left than the Orioles. They have to play the Yankees 9 times, the Astros 6 times, the Blue Jays 9 times. Like that's kind of a tough combo right there. And they're still really hurt. So I do feel pretty confident about the Orioles prospects here. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to just keep believing until I don't think I need to see them lose 4 in a row to be confident that they're a good team, which is what Jesse said. Weird.
Yeah, Jesse went, through that whole thing just to explain the caveat to why he couldn't give a solid answer right now, just because he hasn't seen the struggles.
I need to see this team be bad to know that they're good.
Yeah, I want to see how they respond, right?
I know.
Like we talked about, Adley right now has a 500 on base percentage, in the last whatever number of games, So
Ted Williams did that.
Yeah, right. So I don't know,
I know. I hear what you're saying. But it's just a totally different team since like May 1st and since Adley came up in May 21st. So I don't know.
I think also though, the Rays aren't the only competition the Orioles have, right? We got to keep that in mind. So it's not just the Rays, but the Twins / the Guardians are also involved in the mix. So, yeah.
They're in the mix, and the Blue Jays are in the mix, and the White Sox are kind of lurking there. Yep. I think the Mariners are legitimately good, so I think the Mariners are gonna get in.
Yeah, I think the Mariners will be around.
Yeah, so if we agree that like the Mariners are gonna get a wild card spot, it's Orioles, Blue Jays, Twins probably, and Rays in the mix there, and White Sox I think are kind of hovering, but
for 2 spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But okay, so what we boiling that down, the Orioles are 21-9 in their last 30 games. In that stretch of time, they have a 3.31 team ERA, which is the 8th best in Major League Baseball. And they have a 752 team OPS, which is 9th in baseball in that time. So let's talk about Adley Rutschman. Jesse, you just brought him up. 500 OBP in the second half. He, after missing, almost 2 months with that forearm injury to start the season, which was a real disappointment and kind of, to my head at the time, had sort of, not that the Orioles had playoff chances at that point anyway, but had sort of sapped some of my energy for the season. It was all about seeing Adley. Okay, now we're not going to see him for some unknown amount of time. He's come up, basically erased all of that time, has now caught up to the likes of Julio Rodriguez, Bobby Witt Jr., if you want to even consider him, Jeremy Pena, all those guys. And he's kind of now in like the thick of the Rookie of the Year conversations. Jesse, do you want to talk about what you think his chances are? We kind of had a conversation before the podcast, and you were sort of like, you kind of put the question forward. Do you think he's got a chance at the Rookie of the Year? So, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I would say I think it's down to between him and Rodriguez for it. I think him being a catching prospect with, look, his power has been fine, right? His power is not what's off the charts. What's off the charts is the on-base percentage, the plate discipline, the ability to draw walks, the approach, right? Those are what's really off the charts, and just pretty shocking for somebody who is just starting a Major League Baseball career. We knew Adley was going to be good. We knew he was going to be good. I thought there would be a little bit more growing pains, particularly at the plate, in order for him to really start excelling. But take away the first month that he was in the majors, and this guy has been unbelievable. So it's really the plate discipline, the approach, the on-base percentage, all of those things that are really making him remarkable. Plus him defensively, right, and Rodriguez is a center fielder, so and he's great defensively as well. But obviously you're going to give Adley, if the offensive stats are relatively equal, Adley's going to get the little edge for being the catcher, I think, in the equation. So, I think it's down to the two of them. I think it's somewhat of a toss-up at this point between those two.
So looking at Baseball Reference real quick, and I think I'm looking at this correctly, it's got Adley as the 4th highest WAR of AL rookies. First is Julio Rodriguez at 4.1, then Jeremy Pena at 3.6, Stephen Kwan at 3.4, and then Rutschman at 2.9. But it should be said, all 3 guys ahead of him, I believe, started the season in the big leagues. They debuted on opening day. Adley is dealing with a month and a half less than those 2. And I think at that pace, and I think Julio is hurt right now. Eli, you said that before we recorded. Adley could theoretically catch up to them. I know Kwan hasn't been nearly as good as he was that first month or 2. So no, I think it's really in play. Eli, what are your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, the big thing to me, like you said, they have all had more playing time. Adley is accruing stats and WAR at paces that not one of those players has set this year. So I think he will easily, if we're talking metrics of WAR, I think he'll easily overtake Kwan. I think Jeremy Pena will definitely fall. But yeah, I think it's down to Adley and Julio. Like Jesse said, Julio provides a lot of value all over the field. I think it was like a wrist injury, and he said it was just sore after the home run derby. And I think they're being overly conservative with him and put him on the 10-day IL just so he could rest up and come back and make a run at this thing. So,
or maybe so he doesn't win the Rookie of the Year.
The Mariners don't want him to?
The service time situation.
Well, but he started on opening day.
He'll definitely get a full year.
And at this point, they probably want him to win, because then they'll get draft pick compensation for it.
Oh, yeah. It's not an additional year, right?
No, that'd be kind of crazy to get 2 for 1.
Wow. Yeah.
Wait, when you win Rookie of the Year, though, you don't get an extra year.
I don't think so. Not
Oh.
if
That
you're
was
already
being
up.
discussed.
I think Adley is a good example of a guy that will get a full year if he wins it or comes in second, because he was not promoted on opening day. So they're trying to encourage teams to call up the
Okay.
players sooner, but if they don't, they're giving players the ability to earn a full year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I interpreted it when, like, through those negotiations, that they were like, if you win Rookie of the Year, you know, say Adley's got 1.6 years or whatever, or he's got 0.6 years, that would go to 1.6 years. Not just it would get upped to 1 year.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, that's
Huh.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I thought it like cut a year off of their team control.
Oh. Maybe we'll have to look this up.
Yeah,
that's
right.
not how
Yeah,
I
okay.
interpreted it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I was
could
just
definitely-
kind of making a little joke side comment thing, and then it turned into this, you know.
Right.
But yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's down to Adley and Julio. I think if you're talking impact on a team, the Mariners had a lot going for them already. You know, I think that it's undeniable. You know, people talk about the different ways that you evaluate MVP, whether they have to be on a good team, whether it's just the best player or the best player on a good team or whatever.
Right.
If you're talking about the impact that a rookie player has had on their team, there is no argument there's no argument over whether Adley has been that guy. He has had the largest impact on the Orioles relative to any rookie on their team across Major League Baseball. Yeah, I mean, he's been elite, and it's just undeniable.
I mean,
the dude is so good.
I was just going to say, I mean, the comparison's a little unfair, I think, because, right, the Mariners started off with Rodriguez on the team, so you don't kind of have that same ability to measure his impact relative.
Yes, you do. You have what they were last year, you know, and they pulled in Jesse Winker, who was an all-star, Eugenio Suarez.
Yeah, but it's second
in the majors in home runs since 2017. It's like they were already a good team. The Orioles still have Jorge Mateo, Ramon Urias, you know, Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes. They still have, you know, some of the same pitchers as last year. It's all like the same kind of trash pile that it was last year. So, you know, but this year it's good. And clearly the change that has happened is Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not denying Adley's impact on this team.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right. I mean, the Mariners were, you know, a half game or one game out of the wild card last year. They won 90 games, and it's largely the same core. You know, it's J.P. Crawford, it's, you know, Mitch Haniger, it's all those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, and it's impossible to do like the whole butterfly effect of how Adley impacts. You can't quantify exactly how he impacts all this other stuff, because the Orioles are better, yes, because Adley's there, and catcher was one of our worst positions in 2021 because Pedro Severino and whoever was backing up Pedro Severino at the moment were always bad. But the pitching staff has gone from horrific in general to mediocre in general, with the bullpen being very good, which is a huge shift. And then the defense the infield defense at least has gone from being horrific to, again, decent in general. Mateo's been really good. And I'm not sure how much Adley impacts the infield defense, but it's all these little things together that have made the team go from putrid to competitive. And yeah, I mean, Adley, I think, is a huge part of that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's almost guaranteed he's going to be a top 2 finisher in the award. I think potentially Julio Rodriguez will nip him because, you know, he just had a head start, and apparently he just got back off the IL. So maybe Rodriguez still wins it. And if the Mariners make the playoffs, that's a difference there, but it's going to be really close. And that's impressive for a guy that missed the first month and a half of the season. Let's talk about another rookie who is not going to be winning Rookie of the Year, but has still been pretty impressive and sort of out of nowhere. It's Taran Vavra, second baseman, corner outfielder, hasn't really played either one of those positions a whole heck of a lot since being called up, but he is hitting the ball really well and getting on base at a ridiculous clip. He's walking all the time, has a 417 on base, 850 OPS in 36 plate appearances. And Brandon Hyde has quickly put him into the lineup almost every single day. He's hitting like fifth a lot of times. Really impressive, but he's not really playing the field. Eli, what do you make of Vavra's recent appearance on the big league squad? What are you impressed by? And are you concerned at all that he's just like, they don't play him in the field at all?
I don't know. First, I think there's a hot debate to be had over whether it's Vavra or Vavra. I don't actually know. This is true.
Yeah, I'll have to look at his Baseball Reference.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did give the little pronunciation, but I don't know. The dude's been incredible. He has just been a really steady hitter. He is spraying the ball to all fields. He is able to turn on the inside pitch. He's able to, shoot something into the left center field gap. And yeah, I mean, as Tyler said, he's walking all the time. He is, this was the thing that we talked about on this podcast when Adley first came up. We were just so blown away by his willingness to stay committed to the approach, to not chase pitches. And it's a super rare thing for a rookie. It's, super rare. And Vavra is doing it, quite frankly, more successfully than Adley did when Adley first came up. He is producing better offensively. And you could argue, because he's been a DH, he's not having to learn the whole catching position at the major league level, all that stuff. That's all true. But, strictly in his first month of time in the major leagues, he is a better major league hitter than Adley was, which, is about as high praise as you can give someone. So yeah, he's been incredible. And last night, he struck out on one borderline pitch and two pitches, like it was these two sliders inside that were both, 3-4 inches off the plate, and, not swinging at the second one for strike three after that strike two call had already been called, I think just like shows the commitment to his approach, shows his, internal trust of his sense of the strike zone. And that's stuff that it doesn't go away. Somebody's understanding of the strike zone, somebody's like ability to, to focus in on what pitch they want to swing at is something that stays with a player for a long time. It's a like universal, universal like talent. It just, whether he is going to be a DH, whether he gets time in corner outfield, whether he finally sometime eventually takes over for Rougned Odor at second base, like that skill is there. And you can go through slumps, you can go through whatever. There will be times where he sees it a little bit less or a little bit better, but that's really like an incredibly valuable skill, and it's just evergreen.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those skill sets that just seems like a guy that's just going to be in the big leagues for a long time. I don't know if he'll ever be an all-star or anything like that, but he'll just be around. Jesse, do you want to talk about Vavra at all and what you've liked and maybe kind of what you see his role being on this team?
Yeah, I think Eli summarized it pretty well. I think, I don't know, the plate discipline, of course, is outstanding so far. And I think he kind of caught a lot of people by surprise a little. This is surprising to me. He was definitely like a good prospect in the minors, and obviously had a good shot to make the major leagues. But to be like dominating it offensively in the way that he has, even despite the small sample size, is still very impressive. Obviously, it is a very small sample size, and I don't want to overhype, the implications long term for what that means. But right. While he's hot, Hyde is playing him, and I think that's what the Orioles should continue to do with him until he shows that, until he goes into a slump.
Yeah, and I will say they're definitely like putting in a position to succeed. He's not really facing lefties. Like as we're recording right now, the Orioles are getting set to play the Rays against Shane McClanahan, lefty, probably the Cy Young winner in the AL. Vavra is not in the lineup. Also, it is Vavra. I looked at his Baseball Reference, and the way Kevin Brown is pronouncing it, Vavra is correct, because of course it is, because Kevin Brown is a professional.
Kevin Brown is perfect.
He's
perfect.
He is. He's and now it's like a daily thing. Ben McDonald posts like a pregame video of the two of them, and Kevin Brown's always putting makeup on. It's just like, yeah,
no, it's hilarious.
Like let's just go with it.
I will say I met Kevin Brown at the stadium one time, and he definitely layers it on, but at the same time he goes on TV and I do not. So
layers what on makeup?
Yeah, layers on makeup. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well you don't want to have a shine. You don't want to look shiny
but
on TV. That's
exactly.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. It's theater a little bit. But yeah, Vavra, really exciting. Hope they keep doing what they're doing. Would love to see him in the field a little more often. So let's talk about this a little bit. When he plays in the field is going to be directly connected to Rougned Odor. Odor, I'm an apologist for Rougned Odor this year. We've talked about him a lot. We talked about him prior to the 2021 season when the Orioles were thinking about signing him. I was against it. But the guy, now that he's an Oriole, has definitely won me over a little bit. And it's not exactly with what he does on the stat sheet because it's not particularly good. As of this recording, he's batting .203 with a .264 on base, .378 slugging, and he's got a .78 WRC plus. This is coming the day after. I think he had 4 hits last night. He had a clutch home run earlier this week. Still, the guy is, not a great hitter. And yet, he continues to play just about every day. Just said Vavra is not in the lineup against McClanahan, but Rougned Odor is. So it's an interesting thing we've got going on there. Where do you guys come down? Jesse, maybe I'll go to you first. Where do you guys come down on the Rougned Odor situation? Are you fine to see him in the lineup every day? Do you want to see a switch? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit of a conundrum, like you kind of mentioned, having this go-ahead home run against the Blue Jays, right? I mean, you can't, and that's not the first one he's had, right? I mean, it's been multiple go-ahead, or game-tying home runs in the late innings that have been like massively important for the Orioles. So yeah, I mean, but also the other half of that story is that, right, the stat sheet is not looking good, right? And he's creating a lot of outs offensively, and defensively he's not phenomenal either. So the thing is that I think it's just kind of a big question mark. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to imagine the Orioles going into the playoffs with Odor as their starting second baseman. I think it makes a lot of sense to have him come off the bench, maybe in the late innings, to be a bench option or something. But yeah, I think eventually something's going to have to change. It's just kind of a question of, okay, well, when this does change, what is going to change? Who is going to take over at second? Is it going to be Urias? Is it going to be Vavra? So it's just these kinds of questions, I think, that have to be sorted out. And I think the Orioles, more or less, this is kind of working for right now. And since the Orioles are a little, I think, unsure about what the future is and how the infield is going to look, I think that is some of the cause for the hesitation in what's happening here.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the defense because you're right. On paper, and even the eye test, I think, you would tell you Rougned Odor is not an especially good fielder, but Brandon Hyde has said a bunch of times that I think he likes his defense, particularly turning a double play. And that seems to be why he's in the lineup, in addition to some leadership stuff that I do think is real. But it's the defense. They want him on the infield day in and day out, turn those double plays, lead the defense, control things out there, be kind of the point guard. Eli, do you think that's enough to warrant him being an everyday player for the Orioles?
That's the part I struggle with. It's enough to warrant him being on this roster. Is it enough to warrant him being in the lineup every day as, what is pretty clearly understood as a worse option? There's really no ambiguity about it anymore. He's really not producing. And we Jesse brought up, I think Jesse or you, Tyler, brought up the go-ahead home run in the bottom of the 8th inning against the Blue Jays, and it was great. But it was so hilarious, and Kevin Brown was screaming about the redemption tour for Rougned Odor. It was so hilarious because he had an atrocious, it was a relay coming home, and he made this atrocious throw when we had plenty of time to get the guy at home. He had a base running mistake between second and third
with no outs.
Right, with no outs. And then after hitting the home run, he goes out and he feels a ground ball at second base. He's kind of like charging in on it, and he goes and pulls it out of his glove. It's like slipping out of his hand. He throws it anyway. It sails over Mountcastle, and it's just like, the guy. Actually, I saw this. Fangraphs calls him the 11th most clutch player in baseball. Like they have some means of quantifying that. He's the 11th most clutch player in baseball. That is fine. But he's been a disaster the rest of the time. And, like I definitely do support keeping people around that are veteran leadership. I remember, I think it was one of the games against the Blue Jays. Felix looked like he was starting to fall apart in the ninth inning. Rugi came in, like slapped him on the chest, gave him a little pep talk. Felix continued to dominate the rest of the inning. So there definitely are places where that leadership is, valuable, where it is necessary, but it just feels like he's holding us back. Like we talk about somebody like Kyle Stowers. If you want to get Stowers everyday playing time, then Santander, go to DH. Who's the DH? Taran Vavra. Taran Vavra, go to second base. Rugi, go to the bench. And then right field's open for Kyle Stowers. You can rotate him and Santander in and around, whatever. You can give him days off as Adley goes into DH. Like Rugi, by holding down the second base position, is blocking Vavra. And Vavra's been so good that he's played himself into just about everyday playing time in the DH role. So that locks up the DH role indirectly by Rugi being there. And, is that worth, how much value does he provide as a veteran leader on the field versus how much value does he provide as a veteran leader on the bench? And I don't think it's that much more. I think we put him on the bench and then we get the on-field playing value of better baseball players.
Yes. I mean, I think that's all fair. I think where I start to hesitate, you talk about calling up players or putting players into different roles and even making Vavra into an everyday player at second base. I think that does all sound reasonable and likely and all that stuff. But Odor is like this known commodity of, yes, he's a replacement level player on paper, and he's probably a plus clubhouse guy, or even on-field influence when, like you said, the Bautista thing. There's not a guarantee that Taran Vavra, the everyday second baseman, is the same value there. There's no guarantee that Kyle Stowers, the rookie, is going to come up and hit as well as Kyle Stowers had in AAA. So you have this known commodity in Rougned Odor. Yes, it is underwhelming, but what you have, and the team is winning with what you have. I'm not saying you shouldn't change things when you see an obvious upgrade. I think if we're really being transparent about we want to win right now, Gunnar Henderson clearly would come up and make this team a better team, and you could move Ramon Urias to second base. Yes, I think that is a clear cut. I'm not sure it's a clear cut upgrade to move Vavra into the everyday second base position.
Well, so I guess the only counterpoint to that is moving Vavra to that position does not preclude reverting that change later.
Right.
You can go right ahead and say, okay, Vavra isn't as good as we thought. Move him back. It's like you push him back to the DH role, you push Santander back out to right field, and Stowers sits the bench a little bit more this year.
That's fair. That's fair. I think some people have been talking about DFA Odor. I think that's a step too far. I think Odor's on the roster for the rest of the year. I saw somebody say yesterday, I think it's getting time to DFA. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, no,
when you can do so many other things, you can demote Tyler Nevin, you can mess around with bullpen arms. I'm not saying you've got to bend over backwards to keep Odor, but on the 2022 Orioles, I just think Rougned Odor is on the team until the bitter end.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he should be on the roster. I think he has earned his place here, and I do think he provides value in those intangible ways. I'm fine with that for sure.
Okay. Jesse, are you fine with that?
No, I am fine with that, and I think basically he does Yeah, he obviously has value to the team. That's clear. So I think DFAing him doesn't make any sense. Right. He's been with this team since opening day. I'm pretty positive he was with us opening day. Yeah. Just trying to remember clearly. Yeah. And and he's been our everyday second baseman. That's kind of weird, to get rid of him now at this point, this late in the season. There were other options. The Orioles could have traded him had they wanted to. The Orioles could have gotten rid of him a long time ago, but they like what they have in him, and keeping him on the team I think makes sense. So
yeah, and they should go re-sign Chris Owings again.
Right.
No, they shouldn't do that.
he also has playoff experience, that's the other thing. So that could be useful, down the stretch.
For sure.
Sure.
Let's talk about the other middle infielder, Jorge Mateo. Mateo, I said again today on Camden Chat, how I've kind of viewed him for most of the season as like terrific defender. Whatever you get from his bat is a bonus. And like now, the last month or so, that bonus is like huge. He's like crushing the ball. There was a thing in the Sun today about how he's been working with the Orioles hitting coaches on tweaking some things. But since July 10th, Mateo has a 337 batting average, 366 on base, and a 652 slugging percentage. He definitely has like found the power stroke to some degree. So, first, I guess let's talk about his defense. He did the thing, was it last night? He did the glove flip to first base. Yep. That was really cool.
And I'm halfway across the infield.
I'm all in on Jorge Mateo Gold Glove winner. How about you guys?
I'm all in. Yeah, he's electric. You just see him. I don't know. That was a good example of it. There were a couple plays earlier in the year where, it's a lefty hitter, so the outfield is shifted around the pole towards right field, and there's like some bloop going down the left field line, and he just runs, 3/4 of a mile and makes an over the shoulder catch. The guy is just all over the place. He has been, he's been steady too. I mean, he doesn't mess up routine plays, and he gives you a chance at anything within 50 nautical miles of him. Like it's insane.
It's so different than like the brand of defense that JJ Hardy gave, where it was very, very clinical, like he had a good first step, but he was always just positioned in the right place. Jorge Mateo, he's positioned in the right place, but it also kind of doesn't matter, and he'll just go get whatever, which is really fun. But Jess, your take?
I love talking about his defense, because just like Eli was saying, it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't even know I'm trying to think about who his competition for Gold Glove would be. It's not coming to mind immediately. But yeah, I definitely think he's a top contender if he doesn't outright win it. So
yeah, I'm trying to look now to see other shortstops with high outs above average in the AL, and the only one with more outs above average in the AL is Jeremy Pena with the Astros. Mateo is 8th in the whole league, and the top 6 are all NL shortstops.
I actually don't know much about Pena, so I can't really speak to his defense, but yeah,
he's a rookie too,
right? Yeah,
a little bit younger, but yeah, Mateo is just fantastic. But to give you kind of the idea of the other people, number 1 in the league with outs above average is Dansby Swanson, then Nico Horner, Tommy Edman, Willie Adames, and Ha-Seong Kim with the Padres rounds out the top 5. So all kind of like, I feel like newer names to the discussion for like Gold Glove types. Swanson's been around a bit, and Edman's been around a bit. Oh, Edman's mostly a second baseman, but he must play some shortstop, I guess.
Now that Andrelton Simmons is out of the league, like we've moved on from considering him, so
yeah, the new the new era of shortstops, led by Jorge Mateo, of course. But yeah, so that's, the defense has been great all year, but offensively, I don't know that I necessarily see him doing anything differently. I don't know if you guys have a different read on that. Eli, do you have like any thoughts on like what has changed about his offense to kind of like tell us why he's just hitting so much better now?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't have a fully good read on any like one change. You mentioned that Sun article. I think it was in there that they said they've just been throwing him a ton of sliders in BP. getting him to recognize spin a little bit better. And I guess what I can say about him is I know that his path to this I'm going to call it superstardom. It's clearly an exaggeration, but the superstardom at shortstop was, they talked about every day he would go out and he would just take routine ground balls over and over and over. And they say he never really practices the crazy spinning throw, behind second base. He never really practices the like deep in the hole at shortstop. He just practices routine plays. And I think, it could be a situation where he realized he had trouble recognizing spin. It might have gotten him in between timing. He's trying to stay back a little bit more to recognize that spin a little, closer to him, a little deeper. And that gets him behind the fastball. It could be anything like that. It's really not for me to say, but just he's been working on recognizing spin. And I guess that's all that was missing.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes players are just later bloomers than others. He's 27, so not old, but, older for a guy to be kind of like clicking on all cylinders like this. And the Orioles, going back to the end of last season to this season, this is the longest he's been in the big leagues for any amount of time. And I'm sure working with some sort of consistency of like training or staff or whatever helps to develop your skills a little bit more. And also just like your name's in the lineup every single day. He came from the Padres, who, for a couple years now, the Padres have been trying to win a World Series, and the Orioles were not in that situation last year, so they could put him out there. He played a couple different positions last year. They could put him out there. And then again, even coming into this year, the Orioles' goal was not to make the playoffs at the start of 2022. So he could be confident, like, I'm going to be out there for as long as I produce. And, there might be something to that as well. And then you just get on a roll. But I think that's a good point. The Sun article kind of lays out what's going on there with Mateo. So that's interesting. But Jesse, I'll ask you maybe, what do you think Jorge Mateo's future is with the Orioles? We know we've got Gunnar Henderson coming maybe next year. Jordan Westburg can play some third base, some shortstop. What does Jorge Mateo do on the 2023 Orioles?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like, I think primarily, I think he's going to be our starter. I think he's going to be our 2023 shortstop. Longer term than that, and I know we've had this conversation before, things have changed a little bit, of course, given this offensive surge. But I definitely think that, if Henderson does end up playing short, or Westburg really does, seize the position, and, either one of them, and they are clearly a better option than Mateo. I think Mateo is too valuable to end up being a bench piece, right? I think he's a guy that you end up trading because he's so good defensively that to maximize value in that kind of situation, you end up trading him. But I definitely want to, be sure that I don't think the Orioles should be necessarily trying to do that or looking to do that. I think he's a great option. Eventually, I think one of these guys will have to be traded, right? Like Henderson, Westburg, or Mateo. Henderson could play third, so but at some point, I think they're all too good for one of them to be a bench piece. So if it's possible Mateo ends up being the odd person out there and being the one that gets dealt. But, he's so, like we've been talking about, he's so good defensively that Westburg or Henderson would have to excel defensively, right, in order for them to be a better option. And I'm not sure that's going to happen, so I could see Mateo being here for the next several years, but I definitely think he is the starting shortstop in 2023.
Well, yeah, what I will say is I think that him showing the ability to hit like he has recently is important to determining where he sits in the pecking order, because I think that he's been fantastic defensively and he could win a Gold Glove. And you can't find a Gold Glove caliber shortstop just anywhere, but you can find like a light hitting, solid defensive shortstop in most organizations. So I think the fact that he's been like, okay, yeah, I'm a really good fielder and now I can get pretty close to hitting like league average on the year. That is an important distinction that I think, yes, that I wouldn't get rid of Gunnar for him, but I could see like, okay,
Right.
we've got a shortstop. Gunner's going to come and play third, and maybe Jordan Westberg will like dangle out there and see if we can package him with somebody to get a starting pitcher or something. That makes sense.
Let me just say, I mean, now that I'm thinking, I mean, Henderson is like has too much upside probably to end up trading. So let me just clarify that.
Eli, anything else to say on Mateo?
Yeah, I guess real quick, we actually in our outline have not acknowledged that since our last recording, Gunnar Henderson has been deemed the number one prospect in baseball by Baseball America.
Oh yeah,
that is worthwhile.
Kind of a big deal.
Just wanted to throw that out there. But
somehow it didn't make the outline.
Right. It was a minor detail. I think that I would have Mateo penciled in as the starting shortstop for 2023. I'm not mad at that. I do think Gunnar should be in our starting lineup on opening day in 2023 as well. But yeah,
with Rougned Odor at second.
Oh my god! If Rougned Odor is at second base next year, could you imagine?
I mean, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no
right. There's no way.
It's Urias, it's Vavra, it's too full. Yeah.
But just take a second and just think about the absolute vitriol that you would see all over the internet if we re-signed Rougned Odor.
No, he'll be a fantastic starting second baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates next year, and I think that'd be a really good role for him. Personally,
my roommate, who's a Pirates fan, is sitting right behind me.
He'll love him.
He's got headphones on too. But But I guess to refocus, Jorge Mateo, he's been phenomenal. I think he has a future as an Oriole. He has a future as a starting shortstop as an Oriole. That said, I also, as Jesse was alluding to, can definitely see a situation where somebody says, hey, it's a really nice shortstop you got there. You already got another one. Can we pry him away from you?
Right.
And I could see Mateo going somewhere.
I just don't think that's going to happen this offseason.
Right. I agree. I think it'll be, I don't know. It could even be maybe next trade deadline or next offseason, something to that effect.
Yeah, maybe. I think
changing shortstops mid-year, that's the only thing that I would be hesitant about it happening at the deadline, but yeah,
I get that.
All right, let's talk Anthony Santander. He's another player that I think could potentially be on the move this offseason. I've been advocating for it for a while.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you really just am not big on Santander. Like, you're kind of a hater. I gotta say, you're a Santander hater.
For sure. Because, and look, here's the note I was going to say is that he's been hitting really well. Since July 2nd, he's hitting 326 with a 378 on base and a 553 slugging, which works out to a 931 OPS. That's good. Anthony Santander
can't argue with that.
He's been hitting great. He's the power hitter on the roster. The guy cannot field. He was a finalist for a Gold Glove 2 years ago. He can't field. So for me, the whole thing is that he is a good hitter. He's a good hitter, especially if you compare it with an average or even slightly below average glove in right field. I think he's an everyday player, but he's not a slightly below average glove. He's a well below average glove. And I just think that the time has come to see if you can flip him for something. But I wasn't even going to bring that up here, Jesse. You brought up the hating on him and me wanting him gone for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. Anthony Santander, thoughts? How are things going there? What have you noticed difference about Santander, Jesse? Do you want to talk about him?
I mean, so I've always really liked him. I've always kind of believed in his potential, and I think it's kind of coming forward now. I mean, so the thing is, kind of like the plate discipline at the beginning of the year that we had talked about, like his on base percentage isn't that much higher. But he's just a really good hitter he's just a really good hitter, and he has good bat to ball skills, and plus the power that he exhibits. He's definitely a threat in the lineup. He makes the entire lineup better, right? obviously lengthens it just by his presence in the middle of the order. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's a big deal. I think the Orioles, I think eventually I could see him being traded, because it's kind of like, we were talking about with Mancini. It's sort of, well, how do we find your place? How do we find your role on the team, etc. But if he hits like this, then that really just changes the equation. I don't think he's going to be a 900 plus OPS player like all the time, right? But I could definitely see him be a 850 OPS player, hitter, and or at a minimum 800, so if he's not injured and stuff. So which is a big thing, right? Which is a big thing for him, right? And historically he's had a lot of injuries, so and staying on the field and staying productive and has been a problem. But but I guess my only difference with you is I don't think the Orioles should feel kind of forced to trade him, or I don't think we should be advocating necessarily to trade him, especially if the deal is not there. I don't think the Orioles should feel a ton of pressure to trade him, because I think he is a good enough hitter we can figure him out defensively. I just mean we can find a role for him where he makes sense defensively, or DH him where he's still a net positive on this team.
Well, they've been giving him reps at first base apparently during batting practice and so forth. So we'll see about that.
But then that of course, okay, well, what now with Mountcastle, right?
Well, it'd be sort of a DH first base situation for both of them, I think.
Right. But then okay, so then we have to factor Adley into the DH mix, and it's crowded. It's crowded.
You trade him. You trade him.
Trade Adley?
No.
Oh, trade Santander. Okay.
I'm not an insane person.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll chime in and I'll agree largely with everything that's been said. The thing that I do want to point out is his OPS overall, not even just the 930 or whatever it's been for the last month and a half. I mean, he's sitting at about 800 for the year, and that is augmented by this hot streak, but 800 for the year, for a right fielder, the league average OPS is 730 right now. So he's about 10% better than the league average as a hitter, which definitely is value. Well, that's also I should say that's not a perfect correlation. It's not linear like that when you look at it in terms of OPS plus and WRC plus and that kind of thing.
And he DHs sometimes, so it's not even always right field.
Right. So it's not even always right field, but he's right on par. A 795 OPS is what designated hitters are averaging this year. Mm-hmm. So, if he maintains the 800 OPS, that is, a league average designated hitter, and he provides value from both sides of the plate. You don't have to pull him. It's not a platoon kind of deal. And so for all of the roster concerns that you guys were just talking about, really moving him anywhere or keeping him anywhere is a problem for us. I think this year makes sense for a trade, and it's nothing against him. I think he is a productive player, and I think he will continue to be. But I think for us, we need a spot in the outfield for somebody like a Stowers. We need that DH role available. And I think it makes sense to trade him. But, I love him. It's kind of funny because we always talk about Trey was, the longest tenured guy. Anthony Santander was a Rule 5 pick in 2017, the year after Trey Mancini came up. Mm-hmm. He has been with us. It's just that he was so hurt that first year and, has just kind of popped in and out. But, Santander's been with us for a long time, and I definitely have a lot of love for the guy. That said, he's got the defensive limitations that Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins do not. He has years of team control, and he's got a productive bat. So I think he will fetch us a lot on the open market, on the trade market. So I think it makes a lot of sense to trade him.
Right. And I know we keep talking about Kyle Stowers. I mean, Colton Cowser is going to be here kind of soon, I think.
Right.
He's in AA. He's crushing it in AA. Yes, he'll probably start at AAA next year, but I think Colton Cowser is going to be a starter on the Orioles sometime next summer.
Mid-season or August or so. Yeah. Agreed.
All right, let's talk Felix Bautista. He stepped into closer role with Jorge Lopez on the Twins now. Has been pretty effective so far. He had that one sort of shaky outing that Eli mentioned where Rougned Odor came in and kind of settled him down. But I think the big news with Felix Bautista this week is that he has a new walkout introduction when he comes out of the bullpen at Camden Yards that features flashing lights throughout the stadium and the whistle from Omar Littles in The Wire. What do we think about the walkout? I think in general, Twitter is very into it. Do we have any different thoughts there? Eli, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I guess the biggest thing to me, I think that Twitter is excited to get excited about anything right now. And I am included in that. Don't get me wrong. Our Warehouse Pod account has been a big fan. I do like it. For those who've watched The Wire, kind of the whole thing about it was this, like, I don't know, it's this childhood song, but it comes out in this super haunting way, it's as Omar is coming down the block and he's a terrifying dude. So it's kind of haunting, and Bautista as a, huge 6'8", 280-pound dude is that kind of intimidating figure you want coming out of the bullpen at the end of the game. Just from the psychological standpoint, just having a large person coming out of the bullpen with this haunting music, I think it gives a cool effect. I was admittedly worried about how we were going to turn the spookiness of the whistle into some kind of hype energy.
Right.
And I forget what the name of the song is. They did that opera song, but dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
And it was okay. I think we could refine that a little bit, and the part where the lights are flashing really, and where we are transitioning into the hype of getting everybody energized for this dude who's going to come through 102 miles an hour. I think that part needs some work, but as a whole, I think it's a solid start.
I think I'm in the same boat there. I think that they're trying to do something special with him coming into the game, which I appreciate. I understand it's kind of a response to the Edwin Diaz walkout going kind of viral. This isn't the first time the Orioles have tried to do some special stuff with their closer. I know when Zach Britton was at the peak of his power, they did stuff with the lights. And I think his song was "For Those About to Rock, We Salute You." I think that was Zach Britton's song.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But yeah, it just seems like it needs some refinement. The timing was kind of off. It also was in front of a crowd of not many people on a rainy midweek night.
Right.
So the hype wasn't all there.
They had the rain delay and then came back, and so all the videos going around, the stadium is totally empty.
Yeah, so it looked kind of silly, but I think on a Friday or a Saturday night, a close to sold out crowd against a good team, that's going to be a lot more impactful. And hopefully they have some time to tweak it, and hopefully have some time for Bautista to give some input into what he wants, because it doesn't seem like any of those elements were really anything. He was yes, this is my favorite song and this is my favorite show. So that's my only critique there. Jess,
the other thing I would just add about it is, so I've watched a few episodes of The Wire. I haven't seen the whole thing. I know who Omar is, but I guess my whole thing about this is that The Wire is a show that is mainly for people outside of Baltimore than people in Baltimore. From my just anecdotal experience, right?
Yeah, Jess, I think that's a take that will be rejected by all of Baltimore.
I don't know. I think there's much more hype about I've heard more about The Wire from people living outside Baltimore than people living inside Baltimore. That's just my experience. I know plenty of people from Baltimore who do not watch The Wire, so again, maybe I could be wrong about that or whatever, but I mean,
it's also a show it's an HBO show. It's a violent show. It's not like a sitcom on ABC from, at 8 o'clock every week. You know what I mean? It's like a prestige show it's a little more niche than a Seinfeld. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's part of it too, is that it's a little more of a niche reference too. but I
Right.
hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think the actual sound effect is cool, and I think I guess I'm for that in a sense.
Well, let's wrap up with a positive, and let's talk about DL Hall. As we record this, DL Hall is preparing to make his MLB debut against the Tampa Bay Rays. We don't know how he does as we record, but we'll assume he threw a no-hitter, and it was really cool. So beyond today, what do we think DL Hall, what will he provide for the Orioles in the 2022 season? We already know that it's been reported this is going to be a spot start essentially. And from this point, he's going to move into the bullpen to provide multi-inning relief. But Eli, what are you hoping, with that context, to get out of DL Hall this year?
Yeah, I think, one of the main arguments against trading away Jorge Lopez was the idea that we, by pulling that piece out, everybody's got to move up the totem pole and you weaken the middle innings. DL Hall obviously has electric stuff. He could probably be a closer right now. He throws 100 from the left side. He's got 2 good breaking pitches. He's got a vastly improved changeup. He's got insane stuff. He could go and he could step in and be a closer in the MLB right now, I think. And I have a lot of confidence in that. But his ability to step in, handle multiple innings, get out of a jam in the 3rd inning when, Dean Kramer struggles when he first goes out there, whatever, and bridge to the 6th or 7th when we can then roll out Cionel Perez, Dylan Tate, and eventually Felix Bautista. I think that's immeasurably valuable. I don't really know why we don't use Keegan Aiken in that role anymore, but for whatever reason, we don't. And yeah, having some length out of the front end of the bullpen, I think is super valuable. And obviously, he's a huge impact, strikeout capable pitcher. And so it's not the typical, somebody who can come in and just throw pitches and eat innings. He is somebody who can come in a tight situation and work his way out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I've seen people talk about the Keegan Aiken thing. I think my thought with Keegan Aiken is that he's obviously thrown more innings than this before in a season because he was a starter and he's thrown over 100 innings a few times. I wonder if it's just the frequency with which he's throwing now. He's pitching more often, and maybe the Orioles are trying to back off his inning load to compensate. I don't know, but it is a good point to that DL Hall can kind of come in and sort of replace that with a different arsenal, because clearly Aiken's more of a creative. Crafty is what I meant to say, and I meant said creativity. And Hall's a power pitcher. And I think your point about him coming in right away and being a high leverage reliever, that's what Fangraphs has been kind of talking about for a year or 2 with him, is bring him up sooner, make him a relief pitcher, and then transition back to a starter later on. So we'll see how that goes. Jesse, what are you hoping to get out of DL Hall this year?
Yeah, well, it'll be real interesting. I mean, kind of, I'm not sure who, if I'm excited about this long man kind of role for him, relative to him being a back end arm. So that'll be kind of interesting to monitor and to see if that does change or how that evolves throughout the rest of the season. Yeah, it's kind of weird, a lefty throwing 100 to put him in a swing man kind of that sort of role. But yeah, we'll definitely see what happens. And yeah.
Yeah, I think the final thing on DL Hall is Elias talked about him prior to the season, saying that something along the lines of, I think we'll see him, and we'll see him early in the big leagues. Well, it's mid-August. I wouldn't qualify this as seeing him early. So, Eli, do you think they waited too long to bring up Hall, or is this kind of, this is the right time?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this. There was a period where he struck out 40% of hitters. 50% of hitters he was seeing over 3 starts or something to that effect. There were times where he was absolutely dominant. And for whatever reason, the Orioles did not call him up. And then he would kind of fade into a stretch of a couple bad outings. There was the period where he was tipping pitches. and then he would right the ship again, and it was like, okay, we'll call him up. I think, like we said earlier, Elias looks for people to dominate a level, and seeing that DL Hall had kind of gone in and out a little bit, I think just made him hesitant. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not necessarily one to say, but I think that DL Hall, not that he was promoted at the right time, but now we are here and we're in a wild card position. I think that he is here at the right time, and that's the most important thing to me. He is here, for this last run where we're really giving it our best shot, and that's what matters to me. So, whatever happened, I would have liked to have seen him earlier, but he is here now, and we're like locked and loaded, ready to rock.
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought they were kind of ramping up for him to come up like right around the All-Star break. He had thrown 98 pitches in back-to-back starts from the 6th and then the 12th of July. Then threw 81 pitches on the 17th. Then the All-Star break happened. He came back and threw only 17 pitches in a weird outing. And then these last two outings, he threw 99 pitches and then 100 pitches the start before. So like he's fully stretched out. This last start was pretty darn good. 5.1 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, and it looks like 8 strikeouts with 3 walks. So like that's kind of the DL Hall experience. I think he's going to rack up the strikeouts. He's going to walk a few too many, and we'll see. Jess, do you think they waited too long to bring up DL Hall, or are you happy with the timing of his promotion?
Yeah, I mean, so I think they might have waited a bit too long, but I'm also happy with the timing of it, right? This is a critical series against the Rays. This is a big start, right? And this is a good time to pull out this secret weapon you've been hiding for the entire year, So kind of both, I would answer that. So
yeah, makes sense. All right. That's all the topics we've got for this week. You should be getting another episode in about 2 weeks that is going to be a little bit late, but it's going to cover the trade deadline as well as the MLB draft and some of our predictions for September call-ups. We actually ended up timing that pretty perfectly since Paul's up today. We didn't have to speculate there. But yeah, that's going to be in a couple weeks here, so keep tuned for that. To make sure you don't miss that episode, please subscribe to our podcast. You can do that on Spotify, Apple, and everywhere else you get podcasts. We're also on Substack. If you go to thewarehousepod.substack.com, you can go there, give us your email address, and our podcast will get sent to your inbox. We also are starting to try to write blogs on occasion. Eli wrote one about Trey Mancini's trade just a few days ago, so you can check that out, and we'll try to make that a more frequent aspect of our feed over there. You can also you can follow us on various social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at The Warehouse Pod. And if you'd like to talk to us about something directly, you can email us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. Awesome. Well, hopefully next time we talk to you, the Orioles are even higher up the standings, maybe chasing down the Yankees for that AL East lead. And hopefully we're getting ready to talk about some postseason baseball. But until next time, this has been The Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
Thank you for listening.